Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com. Hello, and thank you for being a listener. We are getting close to the 2-year anniversary of the new warehouse, and we are evolving. When I think of the warehouse and all aspects that surround it, safety is always number one. Starting today, I will be having the guest or guests, in some instances, share their top safety tip. This week, we will hear from today's guest, Lior Elazary from inVia Robotics. Please send me your feedback on this edition at kevin@thenewwarehouse.com. And now, for your safety tip.
I think probably the most important thing is to really leverage the latest in intelligent technology and to make sure that, that's being used to keep people safe and efficient. For example, software can keep people distanced apart during this COVID world, and robots can do the work that not only maybe is dangerous, but also mind-numbing, right? Safety can happen from doing the same thing over and over again and kind of not paying attention and running to a forklift. So by having other tasks being done by robots that are taking care of it, and then having software that really guides people and making sure that they're staying safe, I think that's probably the best thing you can do at the warehouse.
Fulfillment demand continues to skyrocket and outpace available labor. To keep up, warehouse operators are turning to flexible fulfillment solutions like 6 River Systems. Utilizing 6 River Systems' award-winning combination of collaborative robots, artificial intelligence, and operational expertise will make your associates and wall-to-wall fulfillment workflow more efficient. No new infrastructure, no change to warehouse layout, easy to deploy and scale, easy to train and retain associates, all at half the cost of traditional automation. Want to take your fulfillment operation to the next level? Go to www.6river.com to learn more. That's www.6river.com to learn more.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. On today's episode, I am going to be joined by previous guest, Lior Elazary. He is the CEO and founder at inVia Robotics. The last time we talked to Lior was in Modex in 2020 in person, like right before everything crazy happened. And now, obviously, we're talking virtually, which is still good, too. So we're going to catch up a little bit with inVia. And we're also going to dive a little more into the inventory control and order accuracy aspect that inVia brings to the table, and get a little contrast on how that is against some other automation products in the inventory control space, and just, I guess, hear a little bit too about what's been going on with inVia since Modex and during the pandemic and all that. So, Lior, welcome to the show. How are you?
Very good. Thank you very much for having me on the show again, Kevin. Really glad to be here. And like you said, it's just amazing of how the world has changed completely since we last met about a year ago, right? So
yeah, we're actually at the time we're recording this, we're probably about a month from our 1-year anniversary of meeting. Right?
Yeah, the world changed 180 degrees. Right?
I know, it's hard to believe. Yeah, so why don't you give us for maybe those people that aren't familiar with inVia, didn't get the chance to listen to the last episode. If you missed the last episode, it's episode 60, so check it out. Just give us a little brief overview of what it is you guys do.
Sure. So at inVia Robotics, we build AI-powered driven robotics, and that basically help e-commerce customers run their warehouses like a very well-oiled, tuned, high-powered engine. Mm-hmm. And that's extremely important nowadays because we live in this on-demand world. Like everybody wants their product now. and we're enabling our customers to keep up with that demand, but not only, which some of them are calling surviving, it's really thriving in this market and allowing them to expand their warehouse and provide even more services, even increased SLAs where they can, bring those items even quicker. So that's really what we're about, and we do that through both software and hardware, such as robots.
All right, nice. So now talk to us a little bit about, because last time we talked, as we mentioned, was I think it was probably like a week before everything just went crazy, shut down, world change, right? So tell us a little bit about, how has inVia done during the pandemic, and, have you guys seen much change in your business or higher demand? What's been going on?
Yeah, so, we were fortunate enough to be in a type of business that I think had a lot of demand, from what happened with COVID. A lot of our customers have increased their volumes, threefold during like May, June, which they never really have done before, right? Usually their peak is around December. Right. And we were really able to be there for them, provide them both more robots, but also increase some of the software to increase the speed of the robots in order to, fulfill faster with the same pool of hardware that they have. And then some other things that, we kind of ran into. First, we have a system that not only drives robots, but also drives efficiency with people. So it guides people to, do various tasks. Mm-hmm. So one of the first things we actually came up with was to make sure that people stay apart from each other, more than 6 feet. So inside the warehouse, the way the system is guiding tasks, not just to the robots, but for people as well, is to keep them away from each other, so not to catch, the COVID, virus. Right. The other thing that we were able to work on, which was really exciting, is to really introduce. We had a picker wall, which is a very unique concept, mm-hmm. where the robots are actually doing work overnight, setting up all the orders for the next day, and then a person will come in and pick those orders very, very quickly. And that turned out to be very beneficial during this COVID times. Because a lot of times in some of our customers, they did have somebody who got COVID. They had to shut down the warehouse. Fumigate had everybody test. But all while the warehouse was shut down, the robots were still able to do the work. So compared to some other technology where you have to have the person with the robot doing the work, otherwise if the person is not there, the robot can't do anything, we're actually able to fulfill like a lot of the orders ahead of time. And then when the person comes in, they'll just pack it. So that actually helped a lot. And then the last piece that really kind of was, fairly complex at first, but was actually made us even better now, is remote deployments. So we had a deployment that was supposed to go on in Japan. Yeah. And they basically, closed all the borders to every non-nationals. We could not even get there. Yeah. The robots did arrive there, but now we had to basically deploy it. And we're able to deploy everything remotely. From the United States. The customers had to do, a little bit of work, mm-hmm. but that was really powerful because a system like an ASRS or a goods-to-person system in the past has never been able to be done completely remote, right? And this time we were able to do everything remotely. And one of the biggest change we did is for the robots to actually map completely themselves. So as soon as the robots arrived there, we uploaded some new code to them. They turned on the robots, and the robots just by themselves start roaming around, learning the warehouse, learning where everything is, and they were able to go right to work. Wow. Before, it required a person to kind of show the robot, okay, you have to go here. You have to basically drive, the robot at first to train it. Yeah, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really cool, actually. And I think remote deployment is, I guess it's not only a useful thing during, the pandemic, but I'm sure like it's going to increase, efficiency on your end and also on the operations end as well. And probably help to save on some of the implementation costs, I would imagine, in the long run too. When we're post-pandemic, it's useful. So it's interesting to see how those types of things. And as I've talked to other people, it's kind of like the pandemic has driven them to ramp up and accelerate their technology plans and get there. And as you said, not necessarily survive, but figure out how to thrive as well, right? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, so that's really good stuff. And I guess I refresh my memory because I think it's, the concept that you're talking about where you're able to utilize it in the evening or during a downtime to set up all the orders is because it's set up sort of like, you mentioned a pick wall, like a put wall, right? So it sets everything up, the robots in that space, and then it's just up to the people to come in and pack the orders, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So imagine like the old way of having like a pick module. But a pick module, you'll have to put the inventory containers ahead of time, like maybe even a week or 2 days or something like that. Here we're doing it in real time. So actually each individual SKU is for a particular order already. So the whole orders are just laid out in there. And as soon as you pick from one tote, then the robot will go in, take that tote and replace it with another one. So we could actually build this big wall overnight with all the current orders, right, that have came in, or even, during the day when the warehouse has been shut down. So then when the people come in the next day, they're just basically just packing the orders. And that made a huge difference because it just completely decoupled, the people from the robots. So the robots can now operate basically 24/7, building that wall all the time. And then people come in whenever it's convenient for them, pack the order, and then they, let the robots do their job.
Yeah, that's really great, especially to kind of maximize on that downtime instead of basically losing that time completely. And I guess it's not necessarily downtime anymore. And I was just thinking, like I had here in New Jersey, and we just had like a big snowstorm last Sunday through Tuesday. Well, I guess it ended yesterday early, Wednesday. But yeah, I mean, we had, and I work in a warehouse during the day, and we came in for a couple of hours, had to shut down. So like having something like that be able to still be in play when you're dealing with unexpected situations like that, where you can't do much, you're kind of tied when it comes to the human aspect. You can still have something working in the background. So that's a really, really great solution. Yeah, no, that really helped a lot. And especially with a lot of our customers, I can tell you that probably around 90% of them at one point or another had a COVID case and had to shut down the warehouse for the day. It's just, pretty sad, but at least, they weren't so far behind at the end of the day. Yeah. So it's a good thing to have a nice contingency plan. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So one thing, when we talked back at Modex, and, I'm a big inventory control guy. That's my background. So anytime I hear inventory, my ears kind of stick up a little bit, right? So, one thing that kind of stood out was the inventory control aspect of your solution. So can you tell us a little bit about how that works again?
We'll be back after a quick break.
You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Sure. So first, like the basic task is really the fact that the robots are what we call the grid or the pick zone, where usually people call that, but that's where all the racks are. The robots are operating in that area. So first of all, the robots, don't make any mistakes. So if a tote is there, it's actually to a fault, right? So if you tell them to go in and pick a tote from a particular location, and the tote is there, we know about it right away. Unlike a person who'd be like, maybe forget about it and not even say anything, and you have that problem over and over again. And we notice that because every time we introduce our system, maybe around 15 or 20%, even some of them have mistakes, right, on totes that somebody has put the tote in the wrong place and haven't told anybody. So right away, the robots basically fix all of those little issues. And then when you introduce new items into the warehouse, you actually use sort of the same wall that we're doing to picker wall, but in reverse. So people from the inbound will just put those totes on a rack, and they can put it in any way, shape, or form, however they want to do it. The robots will go read the tote, understand what it is, and then go file it away. So we know exactly where it goes to. We never lose it, and we know what's inside the inventory. We even have ways of weighing the totes as well to figure out how much is in there, and by weight infer sort of, how many items are either left in there or how many items are in there total. So that's step number one. And that's sort of cleaning up, right? So getting the inventory to be as correctly as possible.
Right.
The other step is maintaining some of the density things inside the warehouse. So for example, every time we have an empty tote that has been picked, we don't go and put it back where we find it. We actually put it away into the replenishment area to replan that. That allows you to actually say, if you ever walk around inside a warehouse, you always see a lot of empty slots or empty totes where it used to be an inventory there, but nobody has utilized it. So we can constantly utilize that in a real-time basis to keep it as dense as possible. We can also consolidate totes. So one of the things that we notice with a lot of customers, they have some seasonal items. So you might have some items that, from Christmas, let's say December, that now you have one Christmas ornament left in this one tote that most likely is not going to get attached for the whole year, maybe at the end, maybe in December. So what we can do is we bring some of those totes in, and either we create a mixed SKU tote where you take all those items, and then, so the robots will bring all those totes into a person, and then the person will take those items, file them into one tote, and then those totes goes away, and you just might have freed for that one item, like maybe 3 or 4 totes. The other option is, let's say there's 2 totes with about half the inventory in this one, half the inventory in this one, and they can consolidate it into one. So we can consolidate in different ways, but the idea is to save that density and to remove a lot of the totes that really are holding empty space, right? A lot of times you see these totes, and there's just one item inside of them, and it's just holding complete empty space and utilizing or losing all that density.
Right.
And then lastly, the one things we could do as well is fix problems in real time as they happen. So as you know, like, there's still going to be issues. I mean, we're dealing with people after all at some aspect, right? Somebody could, let's say, put the wrong item in there or something like that, and we,
people are the worst, right?
Yeah, exactly. So as the tote comes in, when somebody identifies that issue, we flag this tote right away, and then we can either take it for somebody to fix it, or we can take it to another place to somebody to fix it later on. But the goal is that as soon as somebody identifies a mistake, we know about it, and we go and fix it. And then from the order point of view, we might go grab another tote that has that SKU and finish that order, get that out the door, and then we go and deal with that tote. So the concept here is to deal with the mistakes in real time, because previously what would happen is, slowly there's a mistake and somebody will just leave it, and those mistakes start building and building and building, and then you get, really your what's in your database doesn't match what's inside your warehouse, and that's why you sometimes do an audit and you got to shut down the whole warehouse, and so we go,
Yeah, so when they find the mistake, it's the robot that's finding the mistake, essentially, right? Is calling it out, or is it a human too?
No, it will be the person. So like the tote, like the robot will bring a tote to a person, and the person will be like, "Yeah, no, that's not the whatever item it is, the basket bullets, and it's really spoons." And as soon as they do that, now it gets fixed, or even like I said, if they don't trust that person to make that call, it will go somewhere else. But the goal is to fix that mistake in real time. Some of them we can know that there's mistakes, like I mentioned, by weighing the tote automatically. So we know that, hey, we thought there's 50 pieces here. It doesn't look like it because from the weight it looks like there's only 10. So do we want to send it to a cycle counting station or something like that to fix that? But the goal is to fix those mistakes in real time, because that helps throughout the whole warehouse and basically limit that, get that throughput even higher.
Yeah, definitely. So it's interesting because you're able to kind of track it more accurately, and like you said, the real time, and totally know what you're talking about. Somebody comes across it and they're like, "Oh, it's the wrong thing, but I'm trying to make my numbers, so I just put it to the side. Somebody else will fix it, right?" And it doesn't get fixed for like a month. Yeah. Nobody says anything, and it's like 3 weeks later, and all of a sudden you don't have enough for an order because you can't find the pieces. It's like, why didn't you say something? But
and we've been in warehouses where those mistakes end up being like just so bad that like you have somebody who's going and picking, but maybe, like I said, 20-30% of his path is just really, he's not getting anything, because every place that he goes to, it's the wrong item, it's not the right item.
Right.
So it makes a big difference too, right? So utilizing your labor to even be much better than what it was before.
Yeah, definitely. So because it's kind of compounding as well. So when the robot, you mentioned there in the cycle counting station. So how does something like that work? Like, because typically if we're doing cycle counting, we have a certain amount of counts we need to do and things of that nature. So is the robot able to be tapped into the cycle counting program and will bring totes to a person to count, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we actually have, there's two pieces to that. The first piece is the software side. Mm-hmm. So on the software side, we know which totes were touched and which totes might or might not have the right inventory. We also have some other things that the customer says. So for example, if the tote has more than 50 of the SKUs, then I'm okay with it. I don't need to have a great inventory. Mm-hmm. But if it has 5, I want to know that, because if I sold against that 5, I want to make sure that we have that. So we have some algorithms that intelligently decide what to cycle count. Once we decide that, there's 2 ways that the robots will cycle count it. One is to bring it over to a person, and then the person will look inside and says, yeah, no, this is the right, either just identifying very quickly so you can go through one by one, or even we have some ways of identifying, because people are really good at identifying 1, 2, 3 pieces right away, so we can bring those, and you just say yes or no, and if it's higher, we'll take it to somebody to count. But the other way that's even more exciting is we could take the tote and automatically weigh it. And we also can have a camera on top to kind of, if the tote is open from the top, to see what's inside of it, and then cycle count it this way. So basically infer the quantity by weight. So we know how much each piece weighs, and then be able to see how many pieces are inside that tote.
Very interesting. So there's a couple of different ways to go about it. So and the camera, I guess, is utilizing computer vision to understand what the product is in there?
Yeah, so it's basically a pretty basic computer vision, because we don't have to go in. We're not counting with the camera, which is a lot more difficult to do and all that stuff. It's really just kind of identifying, is this the right piece or not? And the good thing we have is we have a prior, what's called in both AI and machine learning, is we know what's supposed to be inside the box. We already know that, okay, this thing is supposed to count, supposed to be all the, the scissors. So we kind of know what we're looking for as well.
Interesting. So I guess how does the setup for that work? Because I guess you have to teach it the items first, right?
Yeah. So there's a couple of ways. So one is if sometimes our customers have some images, their images, but of their SKUs, but also their weights and dimensions and all that kind of information. If they don't, we could learn this over time. So even if they don't have the weight, for example, when they do replenishment, we could take that tote, go and scan it, kind of see what's in there, and trust that they did the replenishment correctly. And let's learn that over time. So we would put the tote away, take a snapshot of it with a camera, take the weight of it, and then file it away, and then we can label that tote as whatever, those are the scissors tote in there, and it has that much weight, and we know that there were supposed to be 50 in there, so therefore, it's like, so many ounces per scissors per one piece. And then we learn this over time. So let's say somebody, fulfilled the scissors again, we take that to the station again, and then we can see, did that match our assumption? If it didn't, we might call somebody, because maybe somebody made a mistake the first time whenever they replanned it, or maybe they made a mistake now. So we can kind of fix that and slowly learn that even better. So even if they have actually some of those dimensions and weights, we can still work with that as well.
I want to take a quick break to tell you about Variable and the new solution for on-demand labor. With demand always changing, why is your headcount always staying the same? If you're bottlenecked and overpaying for labor, your business can't keep up, much less scale. You can change that starting right now with Variable's on-demand labor platform. Post your work today and have bids from workers within hours. You'll be breezing through your backlog in no time with the help of the performance-rated workers you select. There's no volume commitments or term agreements, and you pay only for what you use. Post your first opportunity today at variableops.com/thenewwarehouse. That's VERYABLEOPS.com/thenewwarehouse. Now back to the show. Gotcha. Very interesting. So I guess it's you got to have your data in line, essentially. Like you got to have your weights right, dimensions, all that stuff. So, which is a good thing. It pushes you to be, a better data steward in your company as well. So,
exactly.
So now I'm curious.
The thing about it is that you don't necessarily have to maintain it yourself, like I said, right? So every time we do replenishment, we can check that and make sure that everything is still consistent with our assumptions. That now all of a sudden one of their vendors change the way the scissors look or change the colors, right? And this is the blue scissors, not the red scissors now. That's a different, something we can catch right away.
Okay, cool. Interesting. Yeah. And that's really helpful as well. So I'm curious, how does on the inventory control side, how does this compare to other automated solutions? Like we know we've had a couple of different drone companies on the show talk about their inventory accounting solutions with drones, but how does this compare to those?
So there's a couple of differences, and so one of the differences I think that everybody tried to do, and it's still, we've seen it's very difficult to implement, basically putting RFIDs inside the items themselves.
Right.
The idea there is if you do that, it's actually very easy to count. You can have a RF receiver that will just read it. They also, each of them have a unique ID, so the object identification problem is very simple. Right. And we could do the same thing in our stations. In fact, initially when we first started, that's what was our idea. Okay, well, let's just put a reader, and we know exactly, how many are in there and what's the product in there. Yeah. The issue with that is we're still very far away from labeling every single item with an RFID. Right. A few companies try to do that, but it's still very complex. Yeah. So now what we're dealt with is how do we adapt to the current items that are in the floor, and that's the difference. I think a lot of the drones that are out there, some of them are relying, and some customers do have RFIDs, and they'll go around and read it. Some drones that are doing it will basically be able to count boxes, so like from a bigger set, right? So as they're driving around the warehouse, but they won't be able to see what's inside the tote and how many pieces are inside the tote, unless again, like it has an RFID. So the difference there is that we're able to actually kind of pierce right inside the tote and see how many items you have left, what kind of item it is, did somebody make a mistake, something like that. So getting a little bit more granular on that inventory control.
Interesting. Yeah. That was one thing, I guess, with the drones that I've noticed with the technology is it can't get to that like piece count level like you're talking about, right? Like it can handle like, all right, I see a pallet and I can tell that it's full pallet, which means it's 36, right? Exactly. Yeah. So, but it can't get down to that smaller granular level. So that's really important because that's typically where most of the mistakes are happening when the boxes are open and things are loose. So it's really good that you guys kind of cover that aspect of it. So, with inventory accuracy, we already talked about it, is incredibly, important, just to ensure efficiency. Like you talked about the travel time, 20% to 30% being wasted because stuff is just not where it's supposed to be. But, additionally on accuracy, we also want to make sure that orders are accurate as well. So, inventory accuracy is kind of a basis for that beginning. But how does the inVia solution help to improve overall order accuracy?
So if you look at the reasons why people make mistakes, it's usually because we give them many choices to do. So for example, if you have somebody picking with a cart, walking through the aisles, and you tell them, take this item, he's got a bunch of totes in front of him, he or she, and they could pick any one of them. And if they don't pick the right one, that's where you start getting inaccurate results, right? So let's say, try to take the pen, but the beads are right next to it. And again, they're under a lot of pressure, right? They're people, they're working fast. They might reach their hand. They're thinking they're putting it into the pens, but they get the beads and put it into the order. Now that order has a mistake. What we do is we eliminate those choices. So when the robots come in for the people to pick, we only give them one tote, one choice. Usually, this is why some of our customers don't like so much the mixed SKUs, so mixing multiple SKUs inside a tote. Yeah. So when we bring the tote over to a person, we're giving him only a single choice of what item he needs to pick. And that eliminates the mistakes dramatically. Right now, basically, his mistake is that he could be is how many items did he pull out of it? Did he pull 1, 2? Luckily, with e-com, it's very, very common to basically just pull one item. That's what makes it very difficult, is they're not pulling 100, they're really pulling 1 or 2. And our UIs, what we alert to people, we have very clear UIs. For example, we have different colors, because like I said, most of the time you're pulling one. So most of the time you're just taking one and putting it away. But every once in a while, it's a multi-pick, and it's a different one. So we'll display it in a different color, and that will alert the person, okay, I got to pay attention. I have to pull 2, and then they count it. And then the last piece is the weighing, like we said, the automatic weighing that we can do. So we can go and then weigh the tote afterwards and see, okay, did he really take 2? And if he didn't, we can, kind of start figuring out, okay, who's making more mistakes and how can we train them to make less mistakes. The last piece, once everything is done, we actually have a pack-out QC now that we introduced, which is our software. Okay. So once the tote goes to the pack-out, they scan the tote, and it actually enables the customer to quickly verify what's inside the tote. We show them a visual display with all the images, all the pictures. By the way, during picking, too, another aspect is we show the image of that item that they're supposed to pick. So if somehow there was a mistake right of that tote, that's how they know. They're like, oh, yeah, no, that's not the pens, that's the beads. Yeah. That's right there. And then we're able to fix it also right away, right? So for the next one, it works well. So then during the pack-out QC, we do the same thing. We show them, okay, what's inside the tote. And our customers are able to either, scan real quick the SKUs right there, and we can just check them off one by one. Or there are certain environments. So for example, a lot of our customers, about 15% of their orders are single unit, single SKU. So what we do there is we basically put a bunch of them in one tote, and when they come out to pack out, they'll just take the item, scan it, and it will automatically print the right label for that item, put it in, and then they send it out. So they don't have to necessarily think, okay, is this for this customer? And it'd be really, they can, pack things extremely quickly, and they take one, scan it. And then if their tote, and this is some of our routing, our intelligent routing, if let's say the tote has 10 items in there, then we might bring it over to a person to count, because that's a little bit more complex, and we want to make sure that order goes out the door correctly. So the last piece, like I said, is this pack-out QC with this multi-routing, where we can route things different places depending on how accurate you want to do that. And we have some customers, that their products, their shipping products that cost about $2,000 each. And a mistake is very, very costly. So they can go through these multiple processes, as opposed to something that costs 20 cents. In that case, the mistake, they just kind of, write it out very quickly.
Yeah, it's just some beads and a pen, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So on the weight side, so when because you're saying, I guess, from the inventory accuracy side, it can weigh the tote as it picks it up for the first time, I guess, right? But then when they pack out the order, now is it going to a scale that's built into a conveyor, or it's going back on the robot and the robot's weighing? How does that work?
No, so it depends, right? But we have some customers that have a scale on their conveyor and it weighs it. Otherwise, they don't, and they just, like I said, they just count the pieces that's inside that, the shipping box by now.
Okay, interesting. So now I'm curious, how, or do you have some interesting, I guess, case studies where inVia has helped to either improve inventory accuracy or improve order accuracy overall? I'm sure both would go hand in hand, but do you have any really, really cool stories about that?
Yeah. Actually, so the first piece that I said, actually run across this almost in everybody. Even we had some customers said, no, we have a perfect inventory. As soon as we introduce the robots, the first piece, right, because they don't make a mistake. And they're not like the person, because sometimes, they might have two totes right next to each other, and you tell the person, okay, come over here. And it's like, oh, no, that's not the bead, it's over here. And they just grab it. They actually didn't fix the mistake, and somebody else, might grab the wrong one by accident. But, they might continue. With the robots, they'll go there, and they'll say, no, this is not the right tote. There's, because they have zero mistakes on which tote they are reading. So that really helps sort of clean up the warehouse. So basically, most of our customers benefit from that right away. So a lot of the case studies that we see right off the bat is a lot of their mistakes go dramatically down. I mean, we go from, like I said, sometimes there are about 6% mistakes from all those, right? So some of them, they catch it, but some of them, they don't, and they end up 6% to less than 1% on the mistakes right off the bat without really introducing much, just introducing, the robots and cleaning up, if you will, the warehouse. And then the second piece is what they're noticing is for their people is that the pickers are actually now just almost completely eliminated their mistakes, because now, like I said, we're giving them only one tote, one choice. And most of the time, like I said, this is because of e-com and the nature of e-com, they're picking only one item. So we're able to really eliminate that mistakes almost completely. To the point that, we have a hospital process that we work with. So any mistakes or anything that gets kicked out, let's say from after that pack-out QC, somebody has to fix it. Where, what we see is at first, they might have maybe 100 to 200 orders a day that are, they're gathering there, waiting because they made a mistake, to only a few of them that end up being there, just because Usually it's actually then becomes something that was broken. Somebody picked it, but it was broken and the guy didn't think about it. So it's a little bit, we still think of it as a mistake, but a little bit better now. At least they got the right product, but the product was damaged, so they will go out to pick it again.
Yeah, well, that when we talked to the manufacturer, because they didn't make it that well, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's very interesting because like you said, people, they're like, oh, the inventory is perfect and this and that, but like you said, there's that, I guess, that extra element where a human can think a step further of like, oh, well, what I need is really here, so I grab it from here, but then they actually never fixed it, and I guess and the robot is like black and white, so exactly. So the robot's like, no, it's not here, that's it. I don't care if it's like right next door. It's not here. It's not here. So,
exactly. Yeah. If you want me to pick the one next door, tell me. Then I'll go pick the one. But if you told me to get this one, so that's why I say it's always to a fault, because sometimes they feel like, okay, why doesn't just fix it? And I'm like, no, because we could tell it. Like, what do you want to do now? We know there's a mistake. Yeah. We can take that note, fix it. We can, leave it. We can say pick from there. You could say that, but we probably don't want to, because we know for sure that's wrong. Yeah. We can look at the one, right next door or something like that. But you, like I said, it's to a fault that they are 100% correct, right? It takes our customers a little bit of time to get used to, because their people often, think and do other stuff, which is good. But I think on the low level, we actually want them to think. We want them to do this stuff, but we want them to do more on the high level. Like, for example, this item is damaged. What do you want me to do with it? Because that's something the robots is not going to be able to fix, but they can fix that. So now they can work on these higher level things. Definitely,
yeah. I think it's really interesting, what you guys are doing, and it sounds like since the last time we talked, the whole solution has grown even more, which is great. Yeah. And I think you guys are really, really doing some incredible things in terms of thinking about all the aspects of the process all the way through, and I mean the whole downtime thing too, where it's able to prep orders ahead of time is a really big deal. So I'm happy we caught up, and obviously happy to nerd out on inventory control stuff as well. That's my thing. So Lior, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. How can people find out more information about inVia?
So the best place is to go on our website, www.inviarobotics.com. That's INVIA robotics.com. Okay. And from there, we got a lot of different, documentations and videos and things like that of what our system does.
All right, great. And we'll put those links on the newwarehouse.com as well. So Lior, thank you again so much for your time and catching up with me.
Thank you very much, Kevin. I had a lot of fun. Thank you very much for having me on the show.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.